For centuries, Rome's enemies died on the battlefield, but on a cold day in 133 BC, the enemy was not a Carthaginian. It was a Roman. While the senators ate from gold plates, the soldiers who built the empire were starving in the streets. The gap between the 1% and the rest was about to burn the city down. This is the story of the first political murder in Roman history. And the victim? He wasn't a traitor. He was the grandson of Scipio Africanus. This is the tragedy of the Gracchi Brothers. The year is 133 BC. Rome is the master of the Mediterranean. Carthage is ash. Corinth is destroyed. The gold of the world is flowing into the eternal city. But if you looked closely, the city was dying. The soldiers who conquered the world returned home to find nothing. While they were fighting for Rome, their farms were bought by the rich senators. The backbone of the Republic, the middle class, was erased. Instead of free farmers, the countryside was filled with something else. The Roman farmer didn't just lose his job, he was replaced by a machine made of flesh and bone. Slave labor. Millions of them. The rich got richer. The poor became homeless. The streets of Rome were flooded with angry, starving veterans. Men who knew how to kill, and now had nothing to lose. The Senate ignored them. They were too busy counting their new wealth. They thought the Republic was invincible. But they forgot one thing. An empire that eats its own people eventually chokes on the bones. Into this chaos stepped a unique figure, Tiberius Gracchus. He was not a revolutionary from the streets. He was royalty. His father was a consul. His mother was Cornelia, the daughter of Scipio Africanus himself. He had the most famous blood in Rome running through his veins. He could have been a senator. He could have lived in luxury. But Tiberius saw something others didn't. While traveling through Italy, he saw the empty farms, the slave gangs, the silence of the countryside. He realized that if the common man died, the Roman army would die with him. So he made a choice that would seal his fate. He stood for the office of tribune of the plebs. Now you have to understand what a tribune was. They weren't just politicians, they were the sacred shields of the people. Their bodies were untouchable by law, and they had one nuclear weapon, the veto, the power to stop any law, any consul, and any action in Rome with a single word. His slogan was dangerous. Make Rome great again. For the Romans, not just the rich. He proposed a law, Lex Sempronia Agraria. It was simple. The rich were illegally holding public land. Tiberius wanted to take it back and give it to the poor soldiers. To the people, he was a savior. To the Senate, he was a thief. And in Rome, you don't steal from the Senate and live to tell the tale. The Senate had a weapon to stop him, bureaucracy. They bribed another tribune, a man named Octavius, to veto Tiberius's law. It was a political checkmate. Usually, this is where the reformer gives up. But Tiberius didn't blink. He did something unthinkable. He paralyzed the city. He locked the treasury. He stopped all trade. He held the government hostage. Then he stood before the people and asked them to vote Octavius out of office. It was unprecedented. It was radical. No one had ever fired a tribune before. It was sacrilege. Tiberius didn't just break a law, he broke the sacred immunity of the office. And it worked. Octavius was dragged from the podium. The law was passed. The Land Commission began its work. But Tiberius had made a fatal mistake. He had humiliated the Senate. He had broken the unwritten rules of the Republic. The senators started whispering a single deadly word in the shadows. Rex. King. They claimed Tiberius wanted to be a king. And in Rome, the punishment for wanting to be king was death. The tension finally snapped on the Capitol Hill. Tiberius was running for re-election. Another breach of tradition. The Senate met in the Temple of Fides, just a few hundred meters away. They were furious. They were terrified. Scipio Nasica, the high priest and Tiberius's own cousin, stood up. He demanded the consul to stop the tyrant. The consul refused to use violence, so Scipio Nasica took matters into his own hands. He shouted, "Let those who wish to save the Republic follow me." A mob of senators and their thugs charged out of the temple. They didn't have swords. Weapons were forbidden inside the city walls, so they grabbed what they could find: chair legs, wooden clubs, stones. This wasn't an execution. It was a riot. Tiberius saw them coming. He tried to flee, but in the chaos he tripped over a body. Before he could stand up, the first blow landed, then the second. They beat the grandson of Scipio Africanus to death with pieces of broken furniture. They beat him, not like a soldier, but like a dog. 300 of his supporters were massacred right there next to the holy temples. That night, the Tiber River turned red. They refused to give Tiberius a funeral. They threw his body into the river like common trash. The Republic had drawn its first blood. The Senate thought the problem was solved. They were wrong. You can kill a man, but you cannot kill an idea. 10 years later, the younger brother returned, Gaius Gracchus. He was different from Tiberius. Tiberius was an idealist. Gaius was a shark. He was louder, angrier, and much more dangerous. He didn't just want land reform. He wanted to dismantle the Senate's power entirely. He gave cheap grain to the poor. He gave rights to the Italian allies. He reorganized the courts to punish corrupt senators. For 2 years, Gaius Gracchus was the unofficial king of Rome. The Senate watched in horror. They realized they were facing an even bigger threat. This time, they didn't use chair legs. They used a new legal weapon, Senatus Consultum Ultimum, the final decree of the Senate. It was basically a license to kill. It declared Gaius an enemy of the state. The end came swiftly. Gaius and his followers were cornered on the Aventine Hill. The Senate sent professional soldiers, Cretan archers, and mercenaries to hunt them down. It wasn't a riot this time. It was a civil war. 3,000 of Gaius's supporters were butchered in the streets. Gaius knew it was over. He fled across the river to a sacred grove. Unwilling to give the Senate the satisfaction of capturing him, he ordered his slave to kill him. The Senate paid a reward for his head, its weight in gold. Legend says the man who brought Gaius's head poured molten lead inside it, just to make it heavier. The Gracchi brothers were gone. The rich kept their land. The poor kept their hunger. But the Senate's victory was a mirage. By using violence to solve a political problem, they had signed their own death warrant. They taught every ambitious man in Rome a dangerous lesson. Laws don't matter. Only force matters. The Gracchi fought with words and mobs, but watching from the shadows were men who would fight with something far deadlier: legions. The age of the politician was over. The age of the warlords was beginning. Marius is coming. Sulla is waiting. And the streets of Rome are about to turn into a river of blood. We have reached the end of another journey through the dusty pages of history, but the whispers of the past never cease. Subscribe to stay with us on this mysterious voyage.